My name is Amanda, and I work as a graphic designer in the heart of downtown. My life has been pretty ordinary, but one Tinder match changed everything. Let me tell you about the night my worst nightmare unfolded. It all started innocently enough. I matched with this guy named Jake. His profile boasted charming photos, and he seemed like a genuinely nice guy. We chatted for a while, and he suggested we meet up for dinner at a cozy little restaurant downtown. I agreed, thinking it was time to break the monotony of my routine and maybe find someone special. The evening arrived, and I made my way to the restaurant. As I approached, I spotted a guy sitting at the outdoor seating area who seemed to fit Jake's description. Excitement bubbled within me as I walked over. However, as I got closer, I couldn't shake an uneasy feeling. He looked different from his pictures, older, scruffier, and a bit off. My instincts told me something wasn't right. Reluctantly, I introduced myself as Amanda, and he responded with a crooked smile. The unease intensified, but I brushed it off, thinking maybe he just didn't photograph well. We entered the restaurant, and that's when things took a dark turn. As we sat down, Jake's demeanor shifted. He became overly intense, asking probing questions about my personal life that made me uncomfortable. I tried to steer the conversation toward lighter topics, but he persisted, almost as if he was studying me. It was like he was wearing a mask, hiding something sinister beneath the surface. Despite my growing unease, I decided to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he was just socially awkward or nervous. But as the night progressed, his behavior escalated. He started sharing bizarre and disturbing stories about his past, claiming to have been involved in questionable activities. Suddenly, it hit me. He wasn't the person from the pictures. He had used someone else's identity to lure me into this situation. Panic set in as I realized I was sitting across from a complete stranger with malicious intentions. Desperation kicked in as I tried to find an excuse to leave. That's when he grabbed my arm, his eyes locking onto mine with an unsettling intensity. Fear surged through me as I pulled away, demanding he let me go. His demeanor shifted again, this time into full-blown aggression. The restaurant staff must have sensed something was wrong because the manager approached us, asking if everything was okay. In that moment, I seized the opportunity and told the manager I needed help. The staff promptly escorted me to a back exit, ensuring I got safely away from Jake. I quickened my pace, glancing over my shoulder to make sure Jake wasn't following me. Fear pulsed through my veins as his ominous words echoed in my mind. The bustling city streets offered some solace, but the threat felt too real to dismiss. I ducked into a nearby coffee shop, hoping to blend in with the crowd and catch my breath. As I ordered a coffee, my hands trembled, and I struggled to hold back tears. The barista must have noticed my distress because she asked if everything was okay. I briefly explained the situation, and she kindly offered to let me stay inside until I felt safe. Grateful for the small refuge, I sat near the window, keeping a watchful eye on the entrance. My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. It read, "You can't escape, Amanda. I'll always find you." Dread sank in as I realized Jake had somehow obtained my number. Panicking, I considered calling the police, but I hesitated, unsure of how they could help. Instead, I texted a close friend, recounting the night's events and expressing my fear. The friend, sensing the urgency, immediately called the police on my behalf. Meanwhile, I decided it was best to leave the coffee shop and head towards a more crowded area. As I stepped outside, my heart raced when I saw Jake standing across the street, staring at me with that unsettling smile. I darted into a nearby store, desperately seeking safety. The store employees, noticing my distress, quickly offered assistance. They allowed me to stay inside while they called the police and provided a security escort to ensure I reached my destination without further incident. The police arrived promptly, taking my statement and assuring me they would investigate the situation. They recommended I stay with a friend or family member for the night and offered additional support, including the option of a restraining order if needed. In the following days, I took precautions to enhance my personal safety, changing locks, varying my daily routines, and staying vigilant. The authorities continued their investigation into Jake's real identity, and I cooperated fully, providing any information that could help them track him down. My ordeal served as a stark reminder of the darker side of online interactions. It prompted me to share my story with friends, family, and through online platforms, raising awareness about the potential dangers of online dating and the importance of personal safety measures. While the experience was harrowing, it also fueled my determination to empower others to be vigilant and prioritize their well-being in the unpredictable realm of online connections. It all began innocently enough, with a simple swipe to the right on a seemingly charming profile. Little did I know that this decision would lead to a series of events that would redefine the meaning of Tinder horror story. Our conversation started off on a positive note, filled with light banter and shared interests. He seemed like the perfect match, well-spoken, educated, and with a great sense of humor. We decided to meet at a cozy coffee shop for our first date, setting the stage for what I thought would be the start of something special. As I entered the coffee shop, I scanned the room for the face behind the profile picture. Spotting him at a corner table, I walked over and extended a friendly greeting. He stood up with a smile, and for a moment, everything felt right. However, as we delved into our conversation, I started noticing subtle signs that things might not be as they seemed. He spoke with an intensity that bordered on fanaticism about obscure conspiracy theories and government cover-ups. I dismissed it initially, thinking it was just an eccentric quirk. Little did I know, it was just the beginning. As our date progressed, his behavior became increasingly erratic. He started rambling about aliens infiltrating society and insisted that he was privy to classified information that would change the world. I couldn't tell if he was joking or serious, but the uneasy feeling in my gut grew stronger. Desperate to steer the conversation away from the bizarre, I asked about his hobbies. That's when he pulled out a small bag filled with what looked like crystals and began explaining their mystical properties. According to him, these crystals could cleanse the soul and ward off negative energies. I exchanged a polite smile, trying to maintain composure, but I couldn't shake off the discomfort. To my relief, the date finally came to an end. As we parted ways, he handed me one of the mysterious crystals, insisting that it would bring positive energy into my life. I accepted it with a forced smile, eager to put the strange encounter behind me. But the nightmare was far from over. In the days that followed, he He bombarded me with messages, each more peculiar than the last. He sent me links to obscure websites filled with conspiracy theories, claiming they held the key to understanding the universe's secrets. Alarmed, I asked him to respect my boundaries and stop sending such content. That's when things took a dark turn. He accused me of being part of the very conspiracy he had been warning me about. According to him, I was a government agent sent to spy on him. Messages flooded my inbox, filled with paranoid delusions and accusations that left me both frightened and bewildered. I decided to block him, hoping that would be the end of it. But it wasn't. He created multiple fake profiles to continue his relentless pursuit. I changed my privacy settings, but he somehow managed to find me each time. The messages grew more threatening, and I became increasingly fearful for my safety. I considered involving law enforcement, but hesitated, unsure of how seriously they would take my situation. It wasn't until he showed up at my workplace unannounced that I knew I had to take drastic measures. Terrified, I filed a restraining order against him, detailing the escalating harassment I had endured. The legal process was daunting, but I hoped it would finally put an end to the nightmare. Thankfully, the restraining order proved effective, and the harassment ceased. But the scars of that Tinder date gone horribly wrong lingered. It shattered my sense of security and made me question the risks of online dating. In the end, what started as a hopeful swipe for love turned into a cautionary tale about the unpredictable nature of human connection in the digital age. One evening, after a long day at the office, I decided to give Tinder a try. After a few swipes and messages, I connected with a seemingly normal guy named John. He was charming, had a good sense of humor, and we quickly hit it off. After chatting for a while, John suggested we meet up for dinner at a local restaurant. Excited about the prospect of a potential connection, I agreed to the dinner date. However, things took a strange turn when John messaged me on the day of our planned meeting, changing the location to a park at night. A little hesitant, but not wanting to jump to conclusions, I decided to give it a chance. As I arrived at the park, the dimly lit surroundings made me uneasy. John greeted me with a smile that seemed a bit off, but I brushed it off as nerves. We sat on a bench, and that's when things started getting weird. When I wasn't paying attention, I could feel his eyes fixated on my face, his smile growing stranger by the minute. Out of nowhere, John handed me a small, mysterious box. Intrigued, I opened it, only to find a secret photo of myself inside. Shocked and confused, I asked him how he got the picture. He calmly admitted that he had been secretly following me for a long time, documenting my every move. Panic set in as I realized the gravity of the situation. I immediately stood up, pushing the box away, and screamed for help. As I turned around to run, I was horrified to find that John had vanished into the shadows. The park that was once serene now felt like a haunting labyrinth. I sprinted towards the nearest exit, frantically looking over my shoulder. Weeks passed, and I thought the nightmare was over. However, one day, I discovered a strange letter on my doorstep. The envelope had the silhouette of my room's portrait on it, and inside was the same photo John had given me, but with a chilling message on the back. I look at you all the time. The realization that he was still watching me sent shivers down my spine. I couldn't shake off the feeling of being constantly monitored. The once familiar streets of downtown became a haunting reminder of the Tinder match gone horribly wrong. The fear of encountering John again consumed me, and I couldn't escape the unsettling notion that he was lurking in the shadows, always watching,